James Kaufman, World News Report today. Ladies and gentlemen, today is November 12th, 2025. Last night we were hit by either one or perhaps a combination of two X-class solar flares. NOAA is telling everyone that it was the first and second X-class solar flares that combined into a cannibal CME to bring the actual, levels very high. We had a G4 geomagnetic storm for 6 hours, and that was a KP 8.67. You can see the chart ends here at 9, and a KP 8.33. So we had 6 hours of a G4 geomagnetic storm, followed by 6 hours of a G3 geomagnetic storm. And we've been in geomagnetic storm conditions, 6 hours of a G2 geomagnetic storm and 3 hours of a G1 geomagnetic storm ever since then. Now, everyone is saying that we just got hit by the third CME, and that would mean that it took 26 hours since it popped off for it to get here. Now, I concur that that's completely possible, but to travel that fast, we're talking about seeing some really fast solar winds strike Earth, especially when the atmosphere has already been wiped out by the first two X flares. So they're saying that the X 5.61 has arrived at, 1900 UTC time, or about 2 p.m. today, taking 26 hours from the explosion to impact the planet with the plasma. Well, let's do some math and see what that means. So again, the first two X flares combined, even though neither one of them were that strong, into this, 6-hour event, KP 8.67, KP 8.33, G4 geomagnetic storm, followed by a G3 geomagnetic storm for 6 hours. Then that'd be a KP 7, obviously, followed by, 6 more hours of a G1 geomagnetic storm. And they're telling us this is the impact from the third X 5.61. Now, again, that is possible. That means it got here in 26 hours. The Carrington event, as an example, got here in 18 hours. But I just think that we should be seeing a lot stronger solar winds based on all of this clearing the atmosphere first and the succession of how things occurred. Let me show you some math. So again, NASA and NOAA say that these two combined, and that's very plausible. This would give this one about 36 hours to arrive, and this one about 48 hours to arrive. And they both combined, and they hit us at exactly 2400 UTC time, 0000 UTC time, either very late on November 11th or very early on November 12th. Now, this is what they're saying is hitting now, the X 5.61, and it's very plausible. It could definitely get here in 26 hours, and that's the number that we'd be looking for. I did hopefully tell you all the Carrington event took about 18 hours, they guesstimate, to get here. Just for some quick math so everyone understands, 93 million miles in 26 hours equals, about 3.576 million miles an hour. When you take this number and extrapolate kilometers per second, I've got the 3.576 million miles an hour converted to kilometers per second. So about 1,600 kilometers per second. I would expect to see some serious solar winds accompanied with plasma from the X 5.61. Now, I could be wrong, but this is the right math. I know that. Now, before we look at discovering ACE, what else do we have going on? Definitely a pop here. And this is at 1900. Look where my cursor is. So that's how I came up with my 26 hours, and I'm using this here to come up with my 36 hours and 48 hours. Makes perfect mathematical sense here. And you can see the protons, although it's hitting GOES, but GOES is only 22,000 miles above Earth, so we're not talking about a lot of time whatsoever. So we have two more measurements there. We are in a huge proton storm still and polar absorption event still. They're saying 1, 2. If you can see them, turned into a cannibal. That's the first one. That's the second one. And they're saying that this one's the third one. And it very well might be. I just thought that this would be the first one. And maybe, because we're not seeing the solar winds I'm looking for, maybe this is the second one. But it's very plausible that it is the third impact. Now, this is a proton storm, better known as a solar storm. What y'all used to seeing is geomagnetic storms. Now, if it has arrived, my question also is why do we see all the protons still all the way through? Let's see what time this ends. To 1600. Now, if it were to end by 1800, we just don't have that data, then I'd be like, okay, well, that must have been the impact. Right now, we don't have enough information, except for all day long we got hit by protons, i.e. the white specks, which caused a proton and solar storm and a polar cap absorption event. And look how strong and dense that polar cap absorption event is. Look at the radio alternation. There's no radio use in, well, any part of the Arctic or Antarctic, any part of Alaska or Canada. It did go further south yesterday and further north from the Antarctic. Oh, there it comes. That must have been the impact. Was that? Nope, that's not 1900. Maybe it started over. Let's get to 1900 and see. Let's get to 1900 right here and see if there's an impact. I see it just the opposite. I don't see an impact at all. I don't see an extra impact. There was a small impact, maybe. Maybe. What you're seeing right here is we're starting over from the initial impact, i.e. the clock started over. So when we go to, as you can see, 1900 here, we don't see the polar cap absorption event moving back up or moving back down, i.e. another impact. That's the start over of the clock, okay? This here, watch the clock, 17, 18, no movement whatsoever. No movement whatsoever in the polar cap absorption event. We did see that proton impact at 1900 UTC time, just as NOAA and NASA said. So it's probable that they are correct. I was just expecting the X 5.16 to be the one that caught one of the other two flares, not the other two flares catching each other and creating a cannibal CME, which is exactly what it looks like we might have had last night. Now here's the real data and where my problem arose. What we have here, look, it's just starting to go up here. But what we had here at 1900, it's right here, and you can see something happened. What happened? Well, plasma went way down, way down at the impact point here, and so did solar winds. Went way down, almost like we got impacted from something from behind. And then you can see plasma, its height is 23 centimeters. Well, we went up to just at 100 centimeters. Look at here, 104. was the maximum on the first event or two events, if that's what occurred. Shields were down. Shields are basically up here, and that might be the difference. But we're only dealing with plasma of 24.39 and solar winds of 850, when really they were twice that fast for that thing to get here in 26 hours. See if solar winds move way up. All right, now we're starting to see some solar winds, but look at plasma, 0.96. And the temperature shot way up. So maybe the next bar to drop will reflect the solar winds here. But I'm wondering if we're not about to see much heavier plasma that might be pushing these solar winds up, because a coronal mass ejection is made of plasma by definition. Solar winds are only caused by coronal holes, and they can be pushed ahead by plasma, but plasma is generated by solar flares and filament eruptions. Regularly, when you see something like this, all of a sudden you'll see the plasma come into play. Now, if we see plasma shoot up to 50 to 70 centimeters cubed, I'm going to think that this is definitely our second event, but I'm not going to think that it started at 1900 back here, because we have plasma at 0.42 and I've got solar winds at 277, right? And the height of plasma is 24.39, which does look like an impact here, but I can point to this right here and say, wait, 184.34? What's that, right? So I'm having some problem with the data here. I just don't think that that's enough plasma for an X 5.61 or 16 directly Earth facing, and definitely didn't think that the solar winds were strong enough, although when I returned, it looks like they were being pushed up. Now, if plasma all of a sudden shoots up to here, that's definitely going to be the third impact. If not, maybe we had our second impact. It's hard to tell. Really, anything's possible, as we all know. I was just showing y'all some numbers. The coronal winds and plasma lifted off the sun, and they must have moved at 1,600 kilometers per second, right? 1,600. Now, this is almost as fast as we've ever seen solar winds, 958. And this might be what they slowed down to when they hit our Discover satellite, which is, again, 1,000,000 miles from Earth at Lagrange point 1. We do have some serious, well, heat. Temperatures have risen here. So this might just be the start of a major impact. I'm not quite sure. If this is it, well, gosh, it's hard to explain that being the start of a CME. And why would plasma go down to 0 here, 0.59, 1, 0.96, while solar winds get pushed up, unless all of a sudden we see a surge in plasma, which I will cover later tonight, and then that means that that's going to be your actual third hit. This might have been the second hit through here. I'm just asking some questions based on the data. Now, when I started my inquiry, plasma wasn't yet down to 0.6, and solar winds weren't up yet to 958. The plasma should be much higher. The solar winds should be being pushed up, and they should have been pushed up here. And I guess at some level they were. So NASA is saying that this is the impact from the third CME. Again, very plausible, very plausible. I just don't love the plasma, only going to 23.47 and only going to 25.69, and the 24.57 is with our shields down, by the way. It looks like our shields did pop up there. This is a hard call. Hard call. So that's what's going on, folks. They're saying all three have impacted the planet. We're still in a solar storm and proton storm. I'm looking for a stronger or bigger bar to drop. Let's look at that real quick. I keep going back to our estimated planetary KP index because it's our most up-to-date. We just paid millions to redo this, and it measures it by the third. And this is, I believe a G2. Let's get a number on that. Yes, so initial impact from the X 5.61 or 16 solar flare and associated coronal mass ejection is a KP6 G. Is it G3? No, KP6 G2 geomagnetic storm. So the two much smaller ones combined to really tear us up, bring us to some of the highest levels of KP index or geomagnetic storm that I've ever seen. And the stronger X flare only brought us to a G2 geomagnetic storm, or a KP6, unless the next bar to drop comes in at 7 or 8. And then I'm going to say, okay, maybe they were right. At this point, I'm having a hard time swallowing that this is the initial impact of the 5.16 X flare and associated coronal mass ejection, especially based on the math and the speeds that we know it must have been moving if it got here in 26 hours. We will know by about 7:15 tonight. So in a couple hours when that next shoe drops, we'll know. If it has a really staunch KP index, then I am going to think that the first one caught the second one, or the second one caught the first one, excuse me, and then we're seeing the impact from the much stronger X5 flare now. All right, folks, that's what I have to say. I will be back tonight to update it. You know, again, it's plausible that they're 100% correct. I say that for several reasons, but I question the G2 KP6 impact from the X5. Whereas this does look like a double impact. 1, 2, and then this very well could be a third impact, but if so, it's dwindling quick for an X5 event. God bless, folks. We'll hopefully see y'all tonight. If y'all have any pictures of Aurora Borealis, please send them in at 10 o'clock Central. We're going to be showing pictures of Aurora Borealis. Hopefully y'all come and enjoy. And we're going to be looking at Stevie's and all the different formations and radiation that hit the ground last night and is going to be hitting the ground tonight again. God bless, share, subscribe, and always remember that anything's possible. Bizarro world.